Alright, hello again. So, finally been able to get back on the server. You can see it's still early summer, so I am jumping in late at night, same day that we've done the planting and the lime and fertilization, the intent of starting on the harvest. So, I've gone ahead and saved you a little bit of time here in bringing the semi down to connect to the trailer, but I do need to get the trailer out of the way so that I can get to the harvester, and tend to start at the other end, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave that here. I'll run back to the harvester, kind of get a little bit of a different view of Misty Hills here in the evening. Let's be honest, in the night. I've got to disconnect my header because I need to go and attach to it. Alright, just to avoid any surprises, I just noticed I was a bad boy last time and I really didn't fill myself up or repair myself, so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick, because the last thing we want to do is run out of fuel when we're far from home. I think I should be able to repair while I'm waiting. Yep. Do that. Let's see if the... Oh, I don't have the header on. I'm like tabbing to try to go to the header, and there is no header. Alright, so it's still filling. It's got a big gas tank, so we'll see where we end up. $876 in fuel, which in the grand scheme of things, you know, this far in, money's not really a big concern on my end. I'm in great shape with the finances on the farm. You know, as we talked about, I've got the 600,000 plus in game, and I've got 3 million sitting around if I need to get any more in here, which eventually I will, but because it's pretty rare that I'll sell things in game. So again, this will let us hit Q like you can normally with manual attach, but again, now if I try, I have the header selected, but if I hit X or try to hit B, well, I have to unfold the implement. But problem is I don't have the PTO connected or the cables, so there we go, PTO and the hoses. Now I can hit X. You can see the wheels fold up on the header if you've never used one of these, and I am ready to move. I'll go ahead and pick it up as well so I get a little bit more clearance. Same process as always, where I will get the GPS set, turn it on, and set a line. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. I really don't want to be picking up my truck, so hopefully it'll fall back over. Oh goodness, am I stuck? Gotta be kidding me. Alright, there we go. Well, that's not a great start. Alright. FSN Physics. So, let's set the line again, because that was certainly a mess. Alright. There we go. So, I don't like to use the offset, because that just doesn't work for how I do things. And again, we'll start in the corner and we'll move over. So this is kind of the process I do normally. You know, as I do more of these, we go through more years. It gets repetitive, just like farming does. But you know, we'll be doing different things, and you know, who knows what'll come out. So I need to position this a little more over so that I'm clear of the field. Turn on GPS. Again, we do have crop destruction here, so you got to be careful not to do the turning in the field, because you will. Oops, and I didn't unfold the harvest. Whoops, now I'm unfolding the header. Let me pick the right tool. There we go, unfold the harvester. Now we can start up the header. And we are good to go. So, starting the canola harvest for year 70 in FSN. So, just so we know what we've got ahead of us, I've got 5 fields planted in canola. Down here I've got my home parcel of 29 and 30 that we're on now. This is 29. I'm not real great at doing it from memory. I usually have to look at maps, but I'm pretty sure this is 29. The field nearer to the house is 30. And each field has a little bit of uniqueness, so as we work it, we'll talk about that. I was sharing when I was working on 85 and 86 that are new to me, and I try to figure things out. These I've had, especially these 2 parcels, or these 2 fields in this parcel, because they're my home parcel. So they were the first thing I purchased on this server when I joined Hilly Seneca, and I've been working them for 12 years, and sometimes double cropping, meaning 2 crops in 1 game year. So I've done, for the most part, at least 12 harvests, but I've probably done closer to 14, 15 harvests on these fields. So I've learned how to work them pretty efficiently. And I'm going to do some things that maybe at certain times that people will be like, well, why are you doing that? That doesn't seem to make sense, but it moves things along, at least in my mind, a little faster. Certainly, if you guys see something that you would do differently that might be worth considering, happy to hear the opinions. But I'll certainly share why I do what I do, so you at least understand how I got there. So once again, I tend to start further away, and sometimes I'll start on 30 and I'll go across the other way. But I start at the edge of one field or the other. In the dark here like this, rather than dealing with the house and so forth, I'm guessing, because I really likely will only work for about an hour before I'm going to call it a night and go to bed. I'm not even sure I'm going to get this field completely done in the time that I have. So this one is really the most rectangular field I have. Actually, I guess there's one other. So we've got these 2. This one's rectangular. There's a little notch taken out of 30 because of the house. And then we have 89 across the street over to the west, which was actually the second field I picked up. That when I was on the server, it came up for auction relatively quickly. I'd have to look at my records to see how long I've had it, and really, it's just information. I don't know that anybody's really that concerned about it. But anyway, before I continue, so this field, again, I've got the bale stores that I have set up, and so coming down like I did now, I wouldn't really be able to turn around. So I cut a couple headland passes just to give me plenty of working space down at this end, and I don't do any at the other end. And so basically I come down here, I may do it down the middle at one point, on the edge, but come down from one edge, do the 2 headland passes. Depending on what crop I'm harvesting, usually that won't fill the combine completely. So my first load will kind of be back where I'm set to go back down before I have to bring the truck out and take things up. And that's how I work this field, because it's a little bit longer. You'll see when we get to the edge here, we'll see the edge of 30, but 30 actually is down south a little bit as far as the north end of the actual field. So they don't really line up directly. So I'm a lot closer to the tree line here on 29 than I am on 30. And so that's why I've made the determination as I worked this over the years that clearing out this headland at the end just saves a lot of 3-point or 5-point turns as I'm trying to do things. So, alright, so we've got one, and now we'll come down and start taking a swath. And once again, I'm less worried about, getting the full amount because I've got enough room to come back later and do the rest, so I kind of leave it a little bit of a sloppy curve there. There's not really a point in playing around to catch that. I'll catch it later. The main point is just, for the most part, give myself 2 headers width back here on the back end of the field to maneuver and turn around. And we've got there's another section that just didn't germinate or grow properly. So I think I've seen 2 in this field so far. I haven't had a lot of that in the last few years, so this is kind of unique. Now, I haven't grown canola at all, I think, since my first year, or second year. I think the second year I did something different on every field I had. At that point, I think I may have just had the 2, so maybe it was the second, third year, but I think I had 3 fields, and I did 3 different grains just to kind of determine what the yields were going to be. So it's possible that it's canola that has more of a difficulty in germinating. So yeah, we're just about back to the corner, and we'll go ahead and see that now. I am going to run and keep my HUD up at this point. I am not going to try to be able to determine when my harvester is full without any ability to see what's happening. So I'm trying to raise and lower my header and realized I didn't have it selected. So there's some things you can do with the harvester selected, some things that you can't. So I can basically turn on the header, which also lowers it, but then actually raising and lowering the header once it's running, you actually have to have the header selected. You can't just do that with the harvester being the implement that you're working with. And the only reason in this case I don't necessarily like staying on the header is, again, the keystroke is Alt-X to get to turn off the lock on the GPS, and so if I don't happen to hit the Alt key at the right time, I'll just hit X, and then with this header, the wheels and the towing arm will unfold, and it's just nothing worse than being annoying. But get my pipe out here so that I can be ready to unload as I get around 100%. So yeah, but it's just more of an irritant when you hit X by accident instead of Alt-X, and so a lot of times I'll select back on the harvester and go from there. Alright, so the way I normally do this, I just kind of zoom in on the map so I can select my truck, select my harvester, and just shift back and forth between the two. So I did connect the hoses already, so we'll be all set. More than likely, typical yield off these couple fields usually is going to require me to take 2 truckloads to the silo. So once again, it's been a long time, and I didn't actually look to tell if canola normally hits 160,000 or not. So the other thing I tend to do when I've got the pipe on this end is I will fill the back trailer first. I mean, again, we obviously dumped a little bit in the front, and as we go through, I'll explain my logic and what I do. So at this point I know I've got enough volume, so I'll go ahead and shift back to the harvester, which sometimes is a little bit entertaining. Well, now that they're on top of each other, it's a little harder to select, but I won't have to move the truck. Now, there is a little bit, there's some strange things that happen periodically. It doesn't look like we're getting much of it now. If we do, I'll explain it. It's easier when you see it. So, you have a surprise coming if it happens, so I'm not going to tell you any more than that right now. But so, just about empty, and we'll move along. Alright, so we're ready to go. Not necessarily a reason to fold the pipe in. There's not really any obstructions around this field. As we work others, like at 89, just like on now 85 and 86, the telephone poles are on that side of the road, so when I'm working over there, sometimes I'll fold the pipe in because otherwise I can get hooked on the telephone poles. But here, you know, I've usually got enough room, or you know, I may pull it in. We'll see, because we're not going to cut a headland on the other end unless I truly start running into problems tonight. But normally I'll just let it go off the field, go onto the road, and turn around. So depending on our timing, it may require me to pull in the pipe, but right now I'll leave it out. So, but yeah, as a reminder, from what we talked about in earlier videos, so those two lizard trailers, the way they're configured in FSN, I can hold 80,000 when I fill them up between the two. It's 53,000 for the larger front trailer and 27,000 for the back. So since the combine is, so I'll go ahead and lift up the header. But since the combine is about 22,000, 23,000 when full, you know, that first load into the back I can always do without a problem. So this is kind of my process. On 29 is I will cut the double header at the back end and then basically go up and down the rows, and that tends to work pretty well. I just try to get on the GPS lines as fast as I can, because that just helps move things along. So the challenge with any of these is, you know, for harvest, and I think regardless of what brand of harvester you buy, they all operate at a similar rate. In FS, where they're running at 6 miles an hour, I haven't seen any, other than some other mods maybe, that lets you have a header that lets you go faster. And I think there's other mods like Combine Experience and things like that that are available, but again, in FSN that isn't here, that I think do change things. But in the world that we've got available on this server, harvest happens at 6 miles an hour. So on fields that tend to be between 20 and 30 acres each, it takes a little while to get through things. So we'll see how it goes. I may, as I'm editing the video, I'll make some decisions, you know, and again, I don't know how long people are going to want to watch videos, but once again, I may leave this one up as a standard video without any cuts or dropping off, at least until I'm done, because like I said, you know, at most I'm going to be on here for likely about an hour, so the video won't be any longer than an hour. But once again, per normal episodes, that tends to be a little long. But this is also a little unique in that we're working on a server platform that kind of requires us to be a lot more manual than maybe would happen in a normal Farm Simulator YouTube video. where I could apply a lot of automation and therefore just let things go and do a quick time lapse all the time because I'm not doing things by hand. But the bigger reason, obviously, now is just part of these early episodes is to get you familiar with how FSN operates for each piece of the process, and where it may be unique and where it may be similar. So I know for certain, I can tell you with 100% certainty there will be time lapse during harvest in the harvest videos that are on here, just because there's a lot to get done across the 5 fields. So going back to explaining about the farm, we've talked about 29 and 30 and 89 down here. So after that, I picked up the parcel that has both 97 and 98, which is where we have our silo complex, and most importantly the Ohio State flag, is, in case you don't remember or didn't know and didn't catch my other videos. That flag is very important and why I own that piece of property. I guess I didn't answer the obvious question that might come up in comments. No, I didn't go to Ohio State. I don't have any family that went to Ohio State. I had a really good friend who did go to Ohio State, so there's a little bit of a tie, but just the fact that, again, I'm in the area now, and so I've kind of adopted Ohio State for a couple different reasons, and having the opportunity to have that flag in the front yard in one of my fields was a cool added bonus to having my home here on this map. So those are the 5 fields that currently have canola on them that we're going to be harvesting in this cycle here. So we're 100% certainty not going to get that all done today, because as you can see by the time, we've literally got an hour left until today is over, and we're going to be signing off before that anyway. And as I mentioned in the last video, 8 to 10 hours is how long it's going to take to get these harvested. So clearly time lapse will be involved, probably significant time lapse, and that's probably how I'll handle it this first harvest. And once I hopefully start getting some feedback on these videos, maybe we'll change that process. We'll jump cut. Maybe we'll just show a few quick things, and as this series gets older and older, things may change, because if we're all still together 12 more game years from now, everybody will be pretty not paying attention. I'm talking, and even though I had that up, I am not watching what's happening. So you can see I ran over a little bit of my canola. Shame on me. But that's what I get for being distracted. And before you all feel guilty that because I was talking to you, I've done it many times before when I'm chatting with other FMs here on the server, or doing other things as I'm farming, because going at 6 miles an hour, as you can see, it takes sometimes 2 minutes to get down a single row. So it's not you, it's me. That's the message. And if I caught it that fast, I'm not going to grumble too much. I probably lost, at most 40 or 50 liters. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be too bad. Alright, so we filled the back trailer now. Now we just need to fill the front. And my process as well, because we were full, the harvester will have lifted the header, and so you got to turn the header back on. Because I've got to run all the way up to the silo, I don't take partially empty trucks up, except in rare circumstances. So you're going to see that I will fill this truck to every ounce of 80,000 liters that I can before we jump in it and take it up. Again, I just found that works better. Otherwise, I'm just taking more trips that I don't need to be taking. So that will be the plan. But I know some people, because depending on as this goes along, you know, I may be 1,000 liters away from filling the truck at some point, and some people might be like, well, why don't you just run it now? It's just the process I follow, and it's served me pretty well. And whether I'm right or not on that it saves me that one extra trip, I think it does. So I do it that way for that reason, because that way I know for certain I'm not making useless trips. Now things will change, you know, perhaps when I get closer, when we're working 97 and 98, like if we happen to be emptying the truck right there, yes, then I may just be like, all right, I'll just take the truck over to the silo. I'm already in the truck. Let's just get her done. But you know, it all depends. Frankly, sometimes it's just, you know, how the mood strikes me, how things lay out. Because every crop has a little bit of a different yield, so you end up in different places on the map or in the field at different times when you get full. So just like in real life farming, you kind of call things on the fly, call a lot of audibles, but for the most part, that's what we'll do. So, you know, we'll be able to get another full harvester here, which will get us to 60 to 70,000 on the, you know, upper 60s, approaching 70,000 on filling the truck. And then that next harvester, we're just going to get a partial load, and then we'll run the truck up. So I think we'll certainly do that within the time that I'm going to be able to play in this session before I cut it and pick up tomorrow. But that's how it goes. So yeah, I know this is probably less entertaining being here at night, because you can only see where the headlights reach, which obviously isn't a whole lot. You know, you do get the pipe spotlight off the case that at least lights up that, you know, gives us a lighted crop circle that moves along with us. So if you guys see anybody or anything pop up in the field that I miss, let me know. Never seen that happen, but hey, you never know. It's getting close to Halloween. I don't think the fields are haunted, but they might be. But yeah, you know, if you decide to participate in FSN, there's some decisions you have to make when you're kind of figuring out your home. Obviously, the main one is what map do you want to be on? There are multiple maps in FSN. I don't know that I've counted them, but I would say at least 24 different maps across the 150 plus servers, at least. Maybe over 30. I don't think it's over 36, but I could be wrong. It's a lot. So, and if, you know, and I think there's something for everybody. So, if you like the giant maps, there's the 16 times Wild West map, which I've mentioned before. And I believe that is the only 16x map in FSN. And, you know, then, you know, usually the divisions after that are less map size, but more terrain and locations. So, you know, if you're a US map fan, obviously there's US maps around, because I'm on one. You know, and there's others as well. I think Nebraska lands is available. Flint Hills is available. That's actually a really popular one as well, which is the Flint Hills, Iowa map. And then there's others that I'm not entirely sure, are U.S. or so forth, because, we have Midwest Horizons, which just by its name, I think is a U.S. map, but, I haven't researched all the maps to be certain. And there's Medicine Creek, which looks U.S.y. And some of these are obviously fictional locations versus like Flint Hills and, Seneca here that are based on real life locations, where they're using the actual GPS topographical map and so forth. Just got to be careful that I don't run past the 100% again. I do have the harvesters giving me alarms at 80%, but as I'm talking again, I'm not really always paying attention. And if I'm being honest, even when I'm sitting here by myself and not talking, sometimes I'm not paying attention. It's easy to kind of zone off and, field crop zone and suddenly be like, oh, I've been zoned out, and suddenly I'm running through the field and destroying crops. So sometimes it doesn't take anything to distract me. It just happens. So there we go. We've hit 80%. But the harvesters don't have an alarm when you're getting closer to 100. I guess the manufacturers figured, you can pay attention for the last 20% and not lose your attention span, but clearly I'm broken, because that doesn't work for me all the time. So, and then there's the European maps as well. So, if you like the British type maps where you've got the hedgerows and small fields, those are available as well. I do think they're less popular, and so there's less of them. But they are available. So, if you decide to join, one of the things you have to decide at some point, if you want to be an FM, is where are you going to be in FM. And so the process for being an FM, so I think I mentioned, you do start out basically as a contractor. That's 100% certain when you first are whitelisted and get through the whitelist process and join FSN. And the typical waiting period that is set up is 30 days, that you have to be an FSN for 30 days before you can apply for Farm Manager. The idea there is you get familiar with all the nuances and the differences, because in most cases, I'm assuming people come to this community having some farm simulator experience. I, frankly, myself didn't have much. I jumped into FSN pretty quickly because that's really what I was looking for. And when I came across it, I always love doing games in multiplayer with real people, and so it was kind of an irresistible idea when I came across it. But I haven't met anybody who was like, I've never played Farm Simulator and I joined FSN and here I am and I'm completely learning everything. But there is a learning curve to playing within FSN because just like the lizard trailers that we talked about, those are mods that are available, but they're changed by the operations team for FSN for various reasons that involve, leveling the community and keeping things equal and fair and supporting the goal of realism and so forth. So there are things you'll have that you may be aware of and be like, yeah, I've played with that mod for the entire time Farm Simulator 19's been out, and you get here and you're like, wait, that feature's not there. Like, I can't use that thing. I think there's also some buttons in some cases that are mapped to different controls, so you have to learn the controls that are set up. Obviously, a lot of people probably don't play with manual attach when they're playing themselves in single player. They're just happy to do the, pull up to everything, hit Q, and you don't have to get in and out. So I know for me, it took me probably 2 or 3 days to get comfortable with that. The nuances that we talked about when GPS acted up on us, and I promise you GPS will act up on us again at some point, maybe even today before we finish. And just getting used to that takes some time. So that's why they've got the 30-day standard in there. Now they do offer, if you donate, I think at $20 or more, it might be $25 or more, you can shorten that to 7 days. But you've got to determine if that makes sense for you, if you feel you've really learned enough. I think the people I've seen get in trouble are the ones who jumped in too quickly, really didn't embrace the broader idea of FSN, and that it's a community and we're here to help each other and so forth, and so kind of didn't like the idea of being a contractor. They kind of felt, hey, if I don't own my own land and I don't own my own farm, then that I don't want to do anything other than that. But those are the people I've honestly seen struggle, because sometimes they get in over their heads. They don't realize how everything it works and is interrelated, because in the system, you can take loans from the banks, and people will do that, but the banks charge interest, and if you're suddenly not generating money, you can go bankrupt in FSN, and then you're basically kind of having to start over. And people sometimes just say, I'm not going to do that, and they just leave. So there is wisdom and thought behind the waiting period to become a farm manager. The other thing to become a farm manager is there's a farm manager quiz that you have to pass. You can take that at any point in time, and you just submit it through a support ticket that, hey, I finished my farm manager quiz, and you send them that, and they'll score it. And if you've got the passing grade, that just goes kind of in your record with the operations team, so that when you do finally apply for farm manager, they know you've passed the quiz. I think you still remind them that, hey, yeah, you've got my quiz and I passed it, so that they know to go look for it. But and that's basically what happens. So when you get to those appropriate periods, depending on what you've done, you'll see a button on the website that lets you apply for farm manager, and basically your application is what server do I want to be on, and what field on that server do I want to be my home parcel. And there's some restrictions as well. FSN will provide you $500,000. It's not a loan, it's just you're given $500,000 to buy your first parcel. If you don't spend all $500,000, you get to keep that money. So you can buy a $400,000 parcel, and then go ahead and save the $100,000 to start buying equipment. But there's some limits there too with that, and so most they like you to stay within the $500,000 usually for buying your home parcel. I honestly don't know. I didn't look. Like, could you ask, and if you had enough money and extra money, could you say, well, I really like the $600,000 parcel, and then you just have to pay the other $100,000? I don't think they allow you to do that, but and the rules do evolve. Sometimes they change, so whenever you're coming in, you definitely want to take a look. I know for certain some of the older FSN videos, like the things Ruby Juice has out there, that I did watch when I was coming in, things are vastly different from what he shows and how things operate now. So that's partially why I'm talking through how things work along with the website and so forth as I go, because I know a lot of the material that's available to folks right now doesn't take into effect the changes. And that makes sense because it's hard to just constantly update things that are already out there. So, but like anything where there's changes, I mean, it kind of gets you there, but it's easy to get even more confused because you're trying to figure out, say, how to pick up a contract or how to do some kind of process, and suddenly it's not there. So, and then you're basically learning on your own anyway. So hopefully this information helps you out a little bit if you're looking at, again, joining FSN at some point. Alright, so at this point I am going to actually just empty here because I'm going to have to take the truck anyway. Normally I would circle around and get the last 2 or 3% up the next row, but I'm going to make the executive audible at this point to not do that because it's dark, and I'm frankly getting close to where I think I'm going to say sayonara for the moment, which means I don't think we're even going to get this field done, which is not surprising because most of these, if I recall, these fields tend to take closer to 2 hours each to get done with harvest. So, and there's always a variation, again, depending on what's planted, because with a super high yield crop, obviously I'm stopping a lot more frequently, emptying into the truck more frequently, and then obviously that requires more trips with the truck at times. Because, for example, if I, one of the highest yielding crops, but it's also one of the crops that pays the best too, which is why most of us tend to run it relatively frequently, especially if you're looking to pump up your cash balance, is poppies. And so, like I said here, I think I'm going to get, 160,000 plus off this field, but more than likely then it'll be a partial third truck. With poppies, I think I regularly get over 240,000 off a single field. So I'm running 3 trucks and filling part of a fourth in most cases for the 3 fields down here. And obviously then that adds time, because as you're going to see, it's going to take me, probably 5 minutes to cycle this trip to get up there, to unload, drive back. Some segment closer to 5 than closer to 1 minute for certain. And depending on when you're doing things, because again, like even driving at night, just like in real life, I tend to be a little more cautious, because if I'm drifting to the side of the road and I can't see a tree, while FSN physics are kind of forgiving, it still can be kind of messy if you've got what we have here, a dual trailer setup. You misjudge and you wrap that around one of these telephone poles, you can spend 20 minutes trying to get yourself untangled. Like I almost did there, but luckily I slowed down quickly, which is the value of enhanced vehicle for me, because I just kind of keep my hand over the space bar, and if I'm suddenly in danger, I just quickly chuck it into reverse and have the engine help slow me down. So, alright, so we will start going. And one of the things I love with this silo setup, I can get both trailers dumping together, where the bigger silo, the unload point was significantly smaller. It wasn't as long, And frankly, it wasn't as wide. You had to pull in between the silos, and it was kind of just barely wide enough for the truck. So, and where I had it, and how I had it down on field 30, it was a challenge, but you know, it's what I had, where I could put a silo when I moved in, so I dealt with it. But when I had the opportunity to change that, I was very quick to change that. You know, and just like in normal single player, you know, it was a financial decision for certain, because it's not as if I could sell that silo and get 100% back of what I paid for it. It depreciated over time, and you know, I think I got like 30% of what I paid, and I think that silo cost $500,000. So, you know, and I got maybe high 100s for it. So, but it was enough of a pain that I felt, now I can do that, and to expand the capacity of that one to 1.2 million down there, like I have here. I don't even know if I could have done it and really left myself space to get into the silo. All right, so up here. But yeah, it just takes a little longer at night because you're driving a little slower. Again, I don't want to come up on the crop and suddenly drive through the crop and destroy it, because I misjudge where I'm at. But anyway, yeah, it typically takes a couple hours, and that's why I knew going in tonight that, you know, this is what I'd get done, and I wouldn't even get the full field. But as we've talked about, you know, servers, the time is running just like it is in the real world. And if I don't get this canola off the fields before winter, I will lose it. So I've only got X number of days to harvest, I think. And so it is a challenge. Do I have it up? No, I don't. Okay. Because yeah, you can get hung up on the road here if you don't lift the header. So it's definitely important to make sure that we've got things in the right position to avoid creating our own problems. Alright, so we've got one truckload delivered to the silo. Definitely a good thing. Nice to have Y70's harvest started officially. I kind of feel, you know, it's really going once I'm actually delivering things and putting crop in the silo for storage. Up until then, it's kind of still not real. Sorry about that. I was reading something. And again, you guys have been able to watch the combine moving along, but just checking the time and trying to determine how much longer I'm going to go before I shut down for the night. So, not too much longer, but definitely want to make it a good dent in this. because I'm just not sure how the next couple days are going to lay out for me and how often I'll be able to jump on. And frankly, I haven't made a decision, and I probably won't until I see how things really finish up about whether I'm going to try to plant something this year or not. So initially, if I knew when I had made the decision, like, hey, I'm not planting till next spring, like, I could take, I'm pretty sure the window on this for harvest, because we've got canola, I've got, 7 days, so I have a week to harvest this. I could basically do technically less than a field a day and get it off, but I still like the option if I decide I want to go ahead and plant something to then be ready in the spring to do that. And and I still may do that on some fields, but not all fields. So, those are decisions you've always got to make as you're going through. So yeah, continuing the discussion about, becoming an FM within FSN, going back to that, once you've decided what map you want, the other big thing, frankly, is with the waiting period, and why I encourage most people to wait the 90 days, or not 90 days. Certainly waiting longer is possible and not a bad idea either, because the other big thing that drives your ability and should drive your decision is how much money do you have, and how do you want to operate. I made the decision I wasn't looking to take out any loans. I do know there's FMs that did that. One of the first contracts I worked on, that I was talking with the farm manager about becoming a farmhand for them, he really couldn't even afford to pay contractors, so he was asking contractors to basically come on board, and you would get paid at the end of the year, which is not normally what most people do in FSN. So there are some rules around what FMs can do for contractors. Again, the going rate is $5,000 an hour. That again was instituted for fairness initially. I believe they were kind of letting people pay what they wanted to pay, but then obviously if you had someone who was well established and doing well, all the farm hands that were available would go work for them because they could make a lot more money because they were getting paid more. And then the new people starting out were having difficulty finding labor. So I believe they put that rule in to just level the playing field. This is the most you can pay. But beyond that, then there's some flexibility. There's nothing about timeliness of paying that is required, other than whatever you've agreed to. They try to make sure that the farm managers respect that, so that it doesn't become a, yes, I'll pay you when you do the work, and then suddenly 4 or 5 days later you're still waiting for payment. And there's an invoicing system, as I mentioned when we did the initial video, and so you can submit an invoice. Some farm managers use their own Discord channel, and basically you'll just post your hours there and they'll pay off of that, and basically just tell you in the Discord, hey, it's been paid. They'll send you a check in the website to pay you. But when you're making $5,000 an hour, it still takes a little while to build things up and get money, because just doing the math, you've got to work 20 hours just to get $100,000. And I would suggest, and some of this depends on what map you're going on and what kind of equipment you ultimately need. Because if you're comfortable starting with really small equipment, maybe again you're doing a British map and you've got way small fields anyway. Maybe you're doing small tractors and 6-meter headers and things like that, and that works, and that obviously will keep the cost down. But I think for what most people do, and if you're buying equipment similar to what I have here, which is a normal size harvester. I mean, you can get smaller harvesters, but as you could imagine in the fields we've got here, you know, if I had to empty, you know, if I had a real small one that only had like a 5,000 capacity, I mean, I'd be emptying pretty frequently, or, well, a lot more than, goodness, I was looking at it when I started the row, and then I just still did it. So the thing I like about the cases, which I had said, you know, I'm not necessarily a case fan in real life, but this is, you can angle the pipe. So when you're in a field like this, you don't have to pull out. Where with the John Deere harvesters, you can't do that. And so then you're either always emptying in one direction, or you're backing up and getting it clear so that you're clear of the crop and the truck's not destroying crop to get to the pipe, which obviously you don't want to do. So this is the reason I run case harvesters, and also this is the reason why I fill the back trailer before I fill the front trailer, because I can use the front trailer with the harvester moving in any direction, but I can only fill the back trailer without then dancing around with the harvester, going where I can get the pipe out fully in the other direction. So that is why, and the surprise that I was telling you about that we'll eventually see, is you can angle the pipe. And it's possible some of you watching this video will be like, what, you can do what? And how did you do that? Because I will say, one of the people I contracted for, at the time I joined FSN, I had literally been playing Farming Simulator for 2 weeks. So I had just started, basically, you know, the first couple days I started playing, I came across FSN. I applied immediately, and then kind of waiting through the whitelist process, you know, I was able to get in that time period. And so the first major place I was a farmhand for was on the Wild West map, and it turned out it was a player who has played Farming Simulator for a long time. I think he said he started on Farming Simulator 13, and estimated that he had at least 3,000 hours in the game. We were harvesting together in the field one day, and I pulled this on his case harvester, and he's like, how did you do that? I didn't even know that was possible. And this was after he had played, you know, 3,000 hours of Farming Simulator, and he didn't know that you could angle the pipe like this. So, and he was just so happy to know that, because he's like, that like changes a lot of things. And that is why I use a case, because this feature is awesome. You know, I can't speak for the other brands. I've never tried a Claas, if I can do this. I've never tried a, God, I can't even think of the name of the yellow ones. New Holland, that's what it is. So I don't know. I just do know for certain the John Deere harvester will not let you do this. It's either fully out or fully in, because I was actually harvesting with someone that was working on that, and I was driving the truck, and I'm like telling them angle the pipe and this and that, and they're like, I don't know how to do it. And initially I assumed, well, kind of like the man who had played for 3,000 hours and didn't know, like they just didn't know. So I said, well, hop out, I'll get in, you know, I'll move it, and then I'll explain to you what I did. And then I realized when I got in the harvester and pulled up the F1 help menu, like, it's not there, and I can't do it, and the normal controls I use in the case weren't doing a thing. And we quickly determined that the John Deere harvester does not allow you to do that. Now again, I cannot speak to the fact of is that somehow modded and changed in FSN, that they've taken that out, and in the John Deere harvester in the single player game that you can. I don't know. I've never tried it. So, you know, it's possible. You guys might be commenting down below like, you're crazy, you can do this, and maybe you can, but in the John Deere harvester that's here in FSN, you cannot. So that is why I run the case. The capacities are basically exactly the same. You know, everything else is the same. You know, the header widths you can buy and you can use, but this is the feature that will have me buy a case every time instead of a John Deere. So, but overall, I like in real life, I love John Deere stuff, and I think, you know, they're a great company and so forth, but in the game, that is why I use a case harvester, for this specific purpose. So again, like now when I'm going, I can extend the pipe again, but that's also why I leave the pipe extended unless I have to fold it back, because to angle the pipe, you do have to go open it entirely first, and then you angle from the fully open position. You know, but at this point, I can, you know, move it back and forth. And so the nice thing is, when you're playing multiplayer and you have someone pulling up on a truck here and you're able to continue running the harvester, you know, if they're not running a GPS line or they're meandering around the field, like, you can chase the truck with your pipe, which is, again, what I was doing with that FM. He was driving the truck, and suddenly he pulled up, and, you know, I had the pipe this way, and then as he moved around, he saw me moving it and kind of sticking with him, and he's like, this is like a game changer. Like, I didn't even know you could do this. So that was a long spiel about a feature that I clearly find incredibly useful. So, but anyway. So yeah, once you have it fully open, you can move it back and forth to your heart's content. But, like, you can't open it to this level from the closed position without going all the way out, if that makes sense. Alright, so I'm gonna run this full and unload, and I am gonna sign off at this point, because it is pretty late here. You know, again, we're pretty close to the real server time. So what you see there is what it really is in my neck of the woods, and it is time for me to go to bed. And even though I'm up pretty early, I don't want to push it too much and get way too little sleep. So, because there are times I've had to do that sometimes, and you're making that decision again because the servers are running in real time, of like, am I gonna, you know, sacrifice a lot of sleep to get the work done I need to get done, because if I don't, you know, I have a problem. So, whoops, hitting buttons. That's another reason I need to go to sleep, because clearly I'm not even paying attention. I was like, oh, I'm at the end of the row, I need to turn around. I pick up my header and nearly run through crop because I picked it up too early. It is time to go to bed. But anyway, I'll get my full row, or my full load here, hopefully not run into the field since I only have 6 or 7% to go. Hopefully I can stay focused long enough to do that. And then we will pick up bright and early tomorrow and see how far we get before I have to quit then. But this may turn into a multi-day harvest, which is kind of typical. So I'm going to turn the harvester off at this point because I'm not going to be getting back in tonight. And we'll go from there. And the good news is, although depending on when I start tomorrow, it may still be a little bit dark, but you know, at least the sun should be coming up since we're in the summer. You know, we're getting to the point where we're at the longest days of the season cycle in FS. So the good news is you guys will at least be able to see harvest in the day. The bad news is that will probably be the harvest cycle that, you know, maybe I'll talk for 5 minutes and then say we're time-lapsing everything else. But either way, you'll get visuals during the day, and so hopefully at least it made this night harvest a little bit better, because at least you had something to listen to with me explaining some FSN work, how things operate, and so forth. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow. It'll probably be the same video, but we'll see each other tomorrow. Take care.